All right, we are live. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening for folks who are joining from literally all over the world. I see a lot of cities from the comment section here. Welcome to the episode today. I am Veena Doraisamy. I'm a developer advocate at Snowflake, and we have a super exciting episode for today. It's all about vibe coding data applications with Snowflake and Replit. And you don't have to write any code. Like bring in, prompt your way out of building data applications using Replit and Snowflake. But to help us all with it, I have a special guest today who is Manny, who runs community at the Replit team. Hey, Manny, welcome to the show. But I also owe the audience a brief introduction about who you are and why you're here and what are we going to talk about today, because I do think you have a very interesting background. Like for folks, Manny is on the community team at Replit, formerly a data scientist, of course. Everybody is a recovering data scientist in this world, at least. And he also owns an AI agency. He's an investment professional, and he has worked with large enterprises to implement AI and analytics solutions. So currently, he is on a mission to bring vibe coding to the world, making it possible for every single one of you out there to turn ideas into real data applications. Very cool. Welcome to the show, Manny.
Hey, Vinu, happy to be here. What a great chat we have going on here. Hi, everybody. Good to see you. Excited to be chatting with you. As you mentioned, I'm a former data scientist. I've been in the data world for a long time. Have always been a big fan of Snowflake. And I'm just surprised with what you can do now with Replit and Snowflake compared to what I was able to do when I first started my career. And so I'm super pumped to be here and chatting with you.
Right? And I see folks here, I think the regulars saying no hat today. I didn't know that was the thing with Manny. That's good to know.
Do you guys want me to bring the hat? I got my
If
I think my super cool Replit hat right here that I
that's it, now
everybody
it's
wears. But I
all
thought
right.
since this is more of a professional bunch, data professionals, that I'd leave the hat off. But you guys let me know in the chat if I need to bring it back.
All right. Yep, we still want that swag while it lasts. But I was thinking, tell us, Manny, what are we here for today? Why are we talking about vibe coding today? I know vibe coding has been the rage for what, a whole year now?
Yes, I think the last year or so, vibe coding has really gone mainstream. And if you think about what's happening on the software engineering side around what people are doing with building with AI and vibe coding, it's been quite the shift. I think back to a statement that Dario, the founder of Anthropic, made a year ago around 90% of all code being automated by AI. People saw that and they were skeptical. Some of them even laughed at Dario. Fast forward 12 months, and I think that's pretty much the consensus in the software development world, that you have to code with AI. You have to vibe code, or else you're going to be left behind. And I think that is a preview of what we're going to get on the data science side of things and on the data analytics side of things. I think up until now, it's been somewhat difficult because to do good data analytics work, you need to get data into your environment, and AI needs to work well with that data. And that historically has been pretty tough. Over the last couple of months, the Snowflake team and the Replit team have worked really hard to fix that, so that now we have a connector that allows you to bring your Snowflake data, bring it into Replit's vibe coding environment, and start vibe coding your own data applications. And again, I think back to when I started my career. I had to learn R, I had to learn SQL, I had to learn Python. I had to set up my own development environment. I had to download my own packages. And that was just always like a big hurdle and really tough to get started with my analytics reports and the data science models that I wanted to build. And now I think about what you can do with vibe coding tools with Snowflake and Replit. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is such a game changer. Not only for us data professionals, for me, if I want to spin up a quick prototype, now I'll go to Replit and just ask Replit agent to build it out, get a quick look at it, make some changes, ship it if I have to. And I can go into the code if I want to get a little bit more detailed. But I think this is also going to be a big game changer for non-technical people. So leaders, executives, managers that maybe don't have the technical aptitude to go in and program something for themselves. Now they can work with tools like Replit Agent to get custom applications, dashboards, reports, and automations. And so again, vibe coding is a big deal. It's going to be a big deal for the next 5 years. I think it's already a big deal on the software engineering side, and it's definitely going to change the way that we do data analytics and data science.
Absolutely. And I know for a fact that all of us, when we started vibe coding, like in 2025, was more about, oh, let's just try it out. What happens? Is it fun? Just exploring what you can do with it. But 2026, I tell everybody, is the year. If you do not get on the bandwagon, you are going to get left behind. It's not for the curious, early adopters anymore. You can't just play around and like see what it can do for you. You have to start use AI. Like, I don't know, how do I tell people, like, this is it. If you get left behind, you are getting left behind. So this is the year you want to get serious about using AI tools and get on board with vibe coding. And so I also see some comments saying, I've never done it, how easy it is and everything. Do not worry. We have Manny here to show us exactly that, and we will build our first ever data application with Replit using vibe coding. With that said, Manny, do you want to talk about why are we talking about it today in particular? I know you did say there was some Snowflake connector from Replit that I hear.
Yes. Let me start sharing my screen and give you all a little bit more context here. So let me just make sure my screen is up. Cool. Yeah. So we talked about vibe coding, how it's different, Dario. And again, the big issue historically has been, how do I get my data into my coding environment so that AI agent can see that and start helping me build things out? And so now we have a Snowflake connector that allows Replit Agent to see what databases you have access to, pull data from those databases, and start building out your own custom applications. So with that said, I thought I'd just jump into a demo and show everybody what this is all about. First, I will say that there is a bit of a admin setup that has to happen both on the Snowflake side and on the Replit side to enable this functionality for users on your Replit Teams account or Enterprise account. I'll touch a little bit more on this a little bit later, but just know that we're rolling out a detailed developer guide on how to do this. So if you don't catch all of this today, don't worry, we're going to cover it in that soon to come developer guide. So I just want to walk you through this. So let's go, I go into Replit. And let's say that I wanted to build out a new, say, sales report based on data that I have in Snowflake. I would go into Replit and drop a prompt here. I'll look it over. And if you notice, this prompt is pretty casual. It's not very technical. It's saying, hey, build me a regional sales performance report. And let me zoom in on this. You can see it a little bit better. I want to be able to see a map that shows different regions. I want to see details like top revenue, top orders. I want a bar chart. I want a line chart. And then I want to be able to click into some of the regions and show some information. But pretty casual, not very detailed. And what I want to make sure I do is activate the Snowflake connector. I can do that from this prompt, or I can do it a little bit later, but I'll just do that here. And the cool thing here is that I could just do a / command and search for my Snowflake connector, and bam, I have it there. And I just want to make sure to use the Snowflake connector. I don't know if you have to be that explicit, but always best. And then we can click on start. And so that is going to kick off this build. And what you see here is that now I am in the build mode within Replit. On the left-hand side, you see my conversation with Replit Agent. Here's where that initial prompt went into. And on the right-hand side, you're going to start seeing Replit put together the preview of this particular build. And what Replit is doing, it's starting to write the files for this particular project. And so if you ever want to go into the code for this build, you can always go here on the left-hand side and check that out. You don't have to, but if you want to get more technical, more hands-on, you can do that. And you're going to see Replit Agent start taking a couple of actions. It's going to start configuring that Snowflake integration. it's going to start writing the different API commands and files to be able to pull data from Snowflake, and it's going to start putting together this application. Now, this initial build will take anywhere between 10 to 15 minutes, I'd say, but I don't want all of you to wait. We can come back to it and I can show you what the initial output looks like from this. But earlier today, I ran this prompt to speed things up a little bit. And here is what I got from that initial prompt. So here is my regional sales dashboard. I have a couple of tabs here with the information that I'm looking for. And I have a map of that information. That's what I asked for in the prompt. I've got it broken out by region here. And then I also have a chart here as well. I can also do things like change the date range here, and automatically that data is getting pulled in from Snowflake, and that data is getting refreshed in real time. So after your initial build, you'll get something like this. And again, if you want to go into the code, you can always click here on the upper right-hand side, and you can see that as well. And all this code belongs to you. So this is your own, this is owned by you. You can upload it to GitHub, to a repo. You can download it if you want. You can run it locally if you want. So after the initial build, kind of going back and forth, you might want to make some changes on this particular build. So for example, I don't like that this chart is a little bit off, and I want to change this. So I can do something like maybe grab a screenshot of this, go into Replit agent here, and I started a new conversation here previously, and I can just ask Replit agent to make this change and have the instructions be kind of in a natural way. And this is kind of the big game changer of working with AI. Previously, you needed to know like the exact syntax to change, the exact code to put in, but everything now is just much more natural and much more conversational. So I can say something to the effect of, hey, can you fix this chart? I don't like that the y-axis is a little bit off. Can you maybe have the y-axis be between 2 billion and 5 billion to have this render a little bit more neatly? And then I'm going to just drop that in there and let agent make that change. So agent is going to see that and is going to start making that change. Here's another really neat thing about Replit is that it gives you the ability to roll back to a point in time. So if for whatever reason, either you put in a wrong prompt, or if agent makes a change that you didn't want to happen, you can always roll back to this point in time and everything reverts back to that place that you had before it made the change. So you can see here pretty quickly, it already made that change. So now I have 5 billion to 2 billion. Again, if I wanted to change that, I can do that. Same thing here, like I can interact with this chart here. And the other thing here is I might want to be able to click into one of these regions and have more detail on each one of those regions. Same process. I'll keep it in the same conversation. But again, I do a screenshot here just to make it a little bit more clear for agent what I'm looking for, and say something to the effect of, hey, on this map, I'd like to be able to click into a region and get more details on that region. So maybe a table gets pulled up with some more detail for that region. Can you help me build this out? And so one other thing that I would suggest is, if you have some questions about a change or a feature and whether or not agent can do it or whether it's a good idea, one other thing you can do is move into our plan mode. And so this allows you to have a conversation with agent about the change that you want to make before you actually make it. And I really find this helpful, particularly when I'm working on complex features, or if I'm doing something new. I want to have a conversation with my agent before it actually makes the change. So see here, you'll see agent start thinking about this request, start thinking about what needs to change, and then give me some suggestions here. So it's like, hey, great news. Let me zoom in here a little bit more. So you can see this conversation. Great news. I already have this feature built. So here's what you need to do. If it's not working, miss additional columns. Okay, so by try clicking on the, okay, so let's see. So it's telling me it's actually already working. So let's actually see that. And I can say, look, say like, nope. Actually, I'm unable to click on a region on a map and get more details. Can you maybe suggest a change to make this happen? So I'm dropping that in there, and I'm using a transcription service to go from voice to text, but you can just type this in if you like. So while that's cooking, let me show you the initial build the prompt that I put in earlier, and show you one key step that you're going to make before you get into this build to start iterating on. So you see here that on that first prompt that I put in, it's now asking me to authorize the Snowflake connector. And so here's the key thing that we're featuring today is this ability to connect to your Snowflake and bring that into Replit. And all I'm going to do is set up that connector, and then this agent is going to be able to set up that connection to my Snowflake database and start pulling in that data. If I compare this to what I used to do in the past to set up a connection to my database, it's just night and day. Now it's just one click. Previously, I had to set up APIs, all this complicated auth, and now it's just one click and it's all set up, which is really, really neat. So let me go back here, and I can see that agent now has a plan for me here and says like, okay, yeah, that's what I can do. I can make some changes. So now it's going to ask me if it wants to, if I wanted to start building, and I can say yes. Now it's going to transition from plan mode into build mode and start making those changes. And that's pretty much the process. That's the vibe coding process. Step number one is enable your Snowflake Replit connector. Step number two is give Replit agent that initial prompt. And then step number three is iterating off of that initial prompt and asking Replit agent to make different changes based on what you want to see, what you want to change. And I think this is a really neat thing about vibe coding is that it's so custom. You can build something particularly to what you want, what you care about. You can change the different graphics that you have here, the different charts you have here. I introduced a dark mode here just because, you know, I like that a little bit better. By prompting agent, you can change the different filters here. Maybe you want to add a filter by region. Maybe you want to add another filter by different accounts, and you can modify all that. This is the cool thing, that all of this is custom and built to specifically to what you want. Now, there's one other step that I wanted to show you all. I wanted to show you how you share this. Once you're done with your build, how would you share this with your team? How would you share this with the world? But first, Vinu, happy to field any questions that you might have or any questions that you see coming up from the chat.
Yes, I do have a couple of questions. I think the latest one from Rosanna Clayton is about if we're doing data transformation, how can we export the data back, or does the connector allow us to do CRUD operations? Is it read only, or are we able to write back to the data tables and whatnot?
Great question. Currently, it's read only, and that's by design. Vibe coding is still a relatively new mode of operation. You know, imagine if you were writing back to your Salesforce, your Snowflake databases, and you're writing back incorrect changes. And so currently, it's just read only. You pull in the data into your Replit environment. Replit can see your data. You can do transformations within Replit. So if you want to transform data and have it for a particular application, you can do that within the build in Replit. But writing back changes to Snowflake currently is not allowed, and that's by design. That might change in the future. I think as you know, we all get better with vibe coding, and as we have better controls in terms of how we make changes to those databases, that might change. But currently, it's just read only into Replit. But again, you can have those changes be or updates and transformations be made on the Replit side for your application.
Perfect. And another question is, as my data gets updated, this dashboard also gets updated and stays, continuously updated, right?
That's correct. Yes, that is the really neat thing about this. As your data changes on Snowflake, this will change as well. And then if you want to just make sure that's the case, I have a button here that says refresh my data. That'll automatically make sure that I'm pulling in the most recent data from that Snowflake database.
Got it. Fantastic. And I know this is probably a little more about the Snowflake connector. There is questions about the semantic model or the semantic file, but essentially, different business teams have different definitions for, what does the KPI mean and what exactly is the definition of it. And then all of these context, the business context is stored in this, semantic layers at Snowflake. And is Replit able to use that semantic layer to, build these reports and dashboards and whatnot?
That is a great question. Let me table that and let me take that back to the engineers, and I will include that in the follow-up or in the developer guide that we roll out, because I think that's a very good question around including that on the Replit side as well.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think my hunch is that it is, but yes, we'd be more than happy to check with engineers and report back on that. And yeah, and there are a few more questions on the Replit side of the world. I was going to ask you, is this free? Can I just use the Snowflake connector from my free account, or do I need enterprise or any of the specific versions of it on Replit?
So unfortunately, it's not free. You'll have to use it from our Teams account or our enterprise account. And so on the Teams and enterprise account, what's really special about those accounts is that it allows an admin person to, one, authorize the connector, and two, to control who gets to use the connector and in what capacity. So if you're an admin on Replit for a Teams account or an enterprise account, you can say that this team has access to these databases and can only use it within these applications. And so that is enabled through the Teams and the enterprise account plans. And so you'll need one of those plans to take advantage of this connector.
Awesome. And another question is about, I think it was from a while ago, but something about the plan mode cost versus build credits. Are they all the same, or are they being charged differently?
Yes. So if you want, no, they're all, it's all plan mode and build mode. Those are all charged in the same way. What you'll find is typically you'll get more token costs when you're in build mode, because you're making more changes to the code base. And so you have more tokens that you're going to be using up. Whereas in plan mode, you have less tokens, less context, and so it's going to be less expensive. I also think that starting with plan mode tends to be a little bit more cost efficient as you're building, because it's almost like when you're adding a new addition to your house, you want to sit down with your architect, you want to lay out a plan of what you want to do before you have the contractor build something out. I think that works well in vibe coding as well. You want to take some time to plan with your agent, make sure that agent knows exactly what you want, make sure that that you're giving it the right directions, and then you have agent build it out. But in terms of like actual usage, they're built in the same manner. But I recommend starting with plan mode and then going to build mode, particularly for more hairier types of features and things that you're building out.
Gotcha. And I think there are a couple questions around the Snowflake side of the world. I think not even Snowflake, but more so, well, the dashboard is built, but how do I now interpret this? How do I understand this? So is there a way for me to see what tables in Snowflake were used or were queried to bring, these numbers to me? Is there a way for me to sort of point those tables back, maybe from the...
Yes, absolutely. So the way that I would handle that is by prompting agent here. So we can say something to the effect of, can you give me, well, before I do that, another helpful tip is to start a new conversation when you have a new topic with agent. It just helps agent stay on track. So can you help me understand where you're pulling this data from? What databases in Snowflake are you using? What tables are you using? Give me some context here. And then I'll drop that in, and then agent will pull that up and give us a little bit more context there. If you'd like, you can also build out a new tab that gives you some more clarity on that, depending on what you're looking for. You might also add that to the documentation. So you can add a markdown file here that gives you some clarity in terms of where that's getting pulled from. But in this case, I would just ask agent to give us that information. So here you see the database, here's the schema, here's the different orders, and here is all of the details on this. And then what's nice about this, again, this is pulling directly from Snowflake, so you can continue to have a conversation about this data. So if I'm new to this data, I can continue to ask about this. So I can say, can you tell me a little bit more about the orders table? Give me kind of a quick summary of what's in there and why it's important. Drop that in there, and now like I have like my own data analyst here that is it's going to go through that data, bring it back to me, and explain it to me. So, one thing, it's one thing to use Replit agent as a builder, which you see here, but then it's another thing to use it as an assistant. So here it's pulling the data, it's explaining it to me, and it's helping me understand it. The other way to use Replit agent is with help in understanding different components. So if I want to understand how this is built out, what's the underlying technology on it, and I want to learn more about that, I can just prompt agent and agent will explain it to me. It's like it has all the context and it acts as a tutor of sorts. So particularly for non-technical people, if you're looking to get started in terms of building your technical aptitude, this is a great way to do it. So you might say like, can you give me an example of the SQL code that I would use to pull information from the order table? And so if I want to learn about SQL and how to structure those that code and write that out, agent can help me with that as well. And again, I can just go back and forth with agent and ask questions and learn more about this. So 3 ways in which you can use Replit agent, again, to build. That's the fun part. That's what I like, to learn more about your data, and then also to help you understand more technical concepts.
I think this is very cool. I feel like inadvertently you also touched one of the questions that came up, which was, so I see this dashboard, but how do I make sure the numbers that I see in this dashboard are right? Like, how do I validate it? And I wanted to say that one way to do it is you could literally ask a Replit agent and be like, hey, give me the SQL query that you use to come up with these numbers. And then, well, ideally, we're thinking of this experience for a non-business user where I don't have the SQL expertise or I don't need to have the SQL expertise. So they could just go talk to their data, get the answers they need directly without being bottlenecked by a data person. But then if you're a data person trying to build this, dashboard to share it with the business users, right? You want to make sure the numbers are right and you want to validate it. You can absolutely ask Replit agent to create these SQL queries, and you could literally manually see if this is the query that would give, the numbers that you're looking for, like some sort of a human in the loop validation before it goes out for wider sharing with other business users. It really is like you decide how you want to use this. Like you're a business user, just go get your answers in natural language. But if you're a data person, you can do this additional layers of validation checks and whatnot.
Yeah, 100%. If I was going back to my data scientist days, I would use Replit to build out the front end like I'm doing. But then I would also get the SQL queries and run it in Snowflake myself to make sure that I'm getting the right numbers or the numbers that I'm expecting. Or the other thing you can do is you can write a couple of test cases. And again, if you want to say, if we go back to Replit, new conversation, and we can say something to the effect of, I want to make sure that you're pulling the right data from Snowflake. Can you suggest a couple of tests that you might write that you can run on a regular basis that just would make sure that you're pulling the right information and something that I can validate? Drop that in there, go into plan mode, and then have a conversation with agent. And then you can have a number of unit tests that can also be a part of this code base that you can run on a regular basis. You can have an admin panel that where you, as the owner of this application, can go into and get the outputs from those different tests to make sure that you're getting the right output. So a couple of different ways to tackle this. And here I'm getting some suggestions here in terms of what we can do, like a sanity check, regional count, all these different things. And then again, I would ask agent to build out unit tests for me to run, and so that agent can check its work too, but also for me to see it. And then I might also ask for how I might double check this on the Snowflake side, just for me to eyeball it, to do an eyeball check on it to make sure that it's giving me the right output as well.
Yes, I think this is very cool. And there is a bunch of questions about the voice to text that you're using.
Right.
Is it Replit or is it an external tool? And I think this is more of a side quest, but folks would love to know.
No problem. This is my favorite way to vibe code. So I use a tool called Super Whisper, and it's always on. And I turn it on. It transcribes my voice, and it just pastes what I say, the transcription of what I said, into the prompt as you just saw it. The transcription service within Replit, we're talking about introducing that. That's coming soon. But for right now, Super Whisper is what I use, and I use it in everything. So it's just like, it's, I think part of the tough part of having me in the office is that I'm always yapping to my computer. So I'm there like, agent, do this and make this change. Like, no, you got to do this. And so people probably think I'm a little bit kooky, but that's my favorite way to vibe code. And this is what I really love about vibe coding, is that if you notice, I'm just asking for things in a very casual way. It's like, take this map, change it, make it better, give me some more granularity. If I go back to my map, and if you remember that change that I asked earlier around adding more granularity when I click into the region, and now here it is. So now if I click into that, I see all of the customers for that, and I even get a nice little chart. I didn't ask for that. Agent built that out for me. Very nice of Agent. So I can scroll over here. Now I see the Europe region. Now I have all the detail here. And I just explained to Agent what I wanted in a very casual type of way, non-technical, and Agent built that out. And I think this is one of the fundamental shifts in terms of what's happening with coding and programming, is it's going from like very detailed, very specific code that you'd have to put in, to now the focus is on the functional explanation of what you want. So, for me, it's been about getting better about describing what I want to AI and focus on the outputs, not necessarily the code itself. And it's just so much fun.
Yeah, I think one definite tip that I want to share with folks who are trying out for the first time, or if you've not vibe coded, is that I, over the holiday break, started to build my own personal website. I'm like, there's one thing that you keep putting back. I'm like, oh, I would come to this later, and it never happened. During the holiday season, I started building out a website. And one thing I absolutely learned was that if you don't speak the language in a way the agent understands, it's going to be hard. You're just going to be finding, oh my God, what is the word for that? Oh my God, I'm saying this. Why are you not understanding? There's going to be just a lot of back and forth. Use the plan mode. Tell it to do something and ask it to summarize the understanding. I'm like, hey, this is what I want you to do. Now summarize what you understood before it even goes and builds something, right? So the more information it gets from you, the more context it gets from you, the better the output is going to be and the better your experience is going to be. It's just like, think about it, right? Even if you're talking to another human, giving more context would be helpful. Same here, right? If you say, I want revenue, maybe if you have 10 revenue tables, it may be helpful to give what specific revenue, or is it a product revenue or a region-wise revenue? Just give it any additional context that you think is needed for that, agent to be able to give you any relevant answers.
Great tip. And one other thing that's been helpful for me that I don't think enough people take advantage of is the fact that you can drop in screenshots. You saw me put in a screenshot earlier, and you can drop in a ton of text. So one thing that you might do is you can start off in something like ChatGPT or Claude, and have like a big conversation about what you want to build and have it like very detailed, and then copy paste all of that text into your Replit prompt and have Replit agent use that as reference. You can drop images in there, big text. You can drop in documentation. So for, if you want a connector or a connection to an application that isn't available in our connector suite. So I'll show you where you can find that. So if I go to Replit, and then I go to integrations, these are all the integrations that we have. Snowflake here is connected. But for whatever reason, if you want to tap into something where we don't have a connector, you can just grab all of that documentation, copy paste that, drop it into Replit, and Replit will have that context to build that for you. But when you can, I'd suggest using the connector here.
Gotcha. I think this is a good question. Can you quickly scroll through the list of connectors? Because there were some folks who are like, what other connectors are there? What other input data sources can I use? As you can see, there's like tons of options available. So go do check it out.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. I'll tell you my favorite one so far. Obviously, Snowflake, but I've also really liked Notion. So if you go to my website, Made Bernabe, also vibe coded on Replit, I have these examples of different things that I have built, and
Mhm.
all of this detail lives in a Notion database, and I'm using the Replit connector to bring in that context into the website. And the reason why I do that is because I don't, whenever I add a new thing that I built, so the next thing I'm gonna add here is introduction to Snowflake and Replit. I'll just go into my Notion database, put in the title, the description, the link, and then it's automatically going to be updated on my website without me having to do anything on the website and things. So super convenient. So really like the Notion connector. Google Sheets is so clutch. Google Drive, obviously, OneDrive. These have been very, 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 very popular.
All right. And there's one more question. I know we have been building dashboards, but we haven't published yet. So can you talk us about when you publish this dashboard, where will this be published? How do I access it? How do I share it?
Absolutely. This is one of the things that people love about Replit. So in Replit, not only can you build your data apps, but you can also share them with the world. You don't have to host them anywhere. You don't have to worry about deploying a database. What you see in the preview here is going to be deployed. So let me show you how to do that. You can always ask agent, or you can go here to one of our tabs and look for publishing. So these are all the details that are going to pertain to this to publishing this app. And I have a couple of different options here. I can deploy this as a private application, which means that only people in my team and folks that I give access to will be able to view this application. And so you might imagine having different applications for different groups at your organization, one for marketing, one for sales. You can control that access via the private option here. You can add a password to it so that only folks with the password can see it. Or what I'm going to do in this case is I'm going to publish this publicly so that I can share this URL with you all. And so what Replit is going to do, it's going to package all of this up. It's going to do a security scan. Here's another great thing about Replit. We put a lot of emphasis on security. So things like this, where automatically your build is going to get scanned for any vulnerabilities, any issues, and then it's going to go start building this out. But in just like another minute or so, this URL will be available and I'll be able to share it with everybody in the chat. And that's how you share your applications in Replit. This is a really, really convenient part of Replit. Otherwise, what you'd have to do is you'd have to send this to some hosting service. You'd have to stand up your own production databases. You have to do authentication. It's just a bunch of like nuanced things, the DevOps things that people don't want to worry about. All of that is handled for you directly here within Replit.
Awesome. I think there is just one more question about, I think, connecting to databases and storing data. I don't want to say that Replit stores Snowflake data, but it's more like, are there?
So,
I mean, sorry.
yeah, and I was looking it up. In this instance, I am not storing data. I don't have a database, but if you're doing transformations, because we can't write back to Snowflake, you could stand up a new database with those transformations so that they're still available through your application. In which case, then it's super easy to stand up a database within Replit, and it's native within Replit. There's other platforms out there where you'd have to go externally and set up a new database and set up the configuration. That's not the case in Replit. If there's something that requires you to have your own database, agent will build that out for you, and it's hosted here on Replit. You can see it, and it also gets pushed to production when you deploy.
Gotcha. Okay, I think that's very helpful because I was going to say, for just read only, I don't think Replit would store the data. But then when you do have transformation, that makes sense. But I love that you don't have to go and create your own database or really think about installing anything else, and just keep that going.
I'm dropping the link in the chat.
Awesome.
Did it go through? Okay, I think it went through.
Oops. Right.
And so, like in less than 40 minutes, we went from an idea to make some changes to deploying, and now that app is live for you to share on the web. I think it's just awesome.
No, it is. I think there are two types of people here I wanted to say, right? One is I'm a business user and I need a report for my QBR or for my weekly update or whatever. I have to Slack my data person. I'm like, can you quickly pull this data for me? Can you quickly create this report for me? And then you go on waiting because you don't know when that's going to come back up. There's just whole long, wait and hope and pray cycle that you can avoid. Literally just connect to your Snowflake database, use Replit, ask what you want, get your answers instantly. Probably doesn't take more than 5-10 minutes for you to get to your answers. If you're a data person, you can think about using it way more, powerfully than just, building one-off reports and dashboards, right? You're a data person, you can think of what kind of questions keep coming up very frequently. Why do I have to keep context switching between every question and, generate custom reports for each of these? Think about building a report and sharing it with different users on the business team and see how you can optimize. There is so much more that you can do. Oh, wow.
Here's another really great thing about Replit. Because it's browser-based, you can open up multiple Replit agents and start building multiple projects at once. So this was me last night as I was thinking about what I was going to show all of you, and I was kind of going through different ideas. And I had 5 different ideas, and I said, why don't I just build all of these at once and see which ones look the most interesting? And so I just opened up 5 different browsers. I put in the different prompts, and I had agent build all of those out. And so I think this is sort of a glimpse of what you're going to see in the future. I think you're going to have multiple agents working on different problems and different types of solutions. Then you're going to go and you're going to review them. It's like, yeah, I like that one. I like this one. Make these changes here and do all this stuff. So you're going to have an army of data analysts and data agents working for you. And this is a really neat thing about Replit. Again, because it's browser-based, you just open a new tab, you go to replit.com, you put in a new prompt, and it just starts cooking on these, and you can just review the work after it's all done. I think it's pretty cool.
No, this is, oh my God, are you even kidding me? This is super fun.
So if you're a busy data analyst and, you've got all these requests coming in, okay, you can spend, maybe the first pass you do is just generate a whole bunch of prompts and just drop them into all your Replit agents, and then have them do a first pass, and then you pick up where they leave off and you just continue to work on stuff. Just the iteration cycle, the prototyping cycle, it's just so much faster now.
This is fantastic. Okay, I think we are sort of close to the end of the episode, but I also know there is tons of questions. And folks, we are coming back with a follow-on episode. We will dive deep into what other apps that you can build, or really answer all the questions that you've asked if we were not able to get to it today. But there are 2 things. One, what is your background? Have you already vibe coded with Replit? If not, go check it out, test it out, and then let us know in the comments. We are going to, I promise you, between Manny and I, we are going to read all the comments, get your questions, and answer them in a following episode. We will, schedule it for the upcoming weeks. But before we get to that, I want you to go build out your first ever data app with Replit, and then come back, show us the feedback. Tell us that was shit and you need to improve. And we are here to listen to you and make your experience better too. So let's keep that going, keep building. And Minnie, any last word before we wrap up?
Yeah, I just want to say, we're early on in vibe coding for data analytics and data science. I think this is a big first step in that trend and helping you do that. This Snowflake and Replit connector, but this is a long-term trend. This is where things are going. go and build something, start vibe coding with Replit and Snowflake. We're eager to hear your feedback. As Vino mentioned, this is a newer integration that we built out. I'm sure some things can be a little bit better, but we're only going to improve and make this better for you. And we want this to be a must-have tool in your toolkit, because I think it's just going to empower some of you so much more. You're going to empower many of you to do so much more. So go and build something, and then let us know what works, what doesn't work, how you're using the connector, what you're building, and just eager to see what the community builds.
Yeah. Like I said, everybody, if you have not been vibe coding, this is your sign to go test it out today, right now. Spend 10 minutes. Doesn't take a long time. Let us know how your experience was, and we will see you again soon in another episode. Thank you so much. Thanks, everybody.